My name is Alex Allen. I'm the president and CEO of the Chandler Park Conservancy. Been doing that here for about 5 years. Chandler Park Conservancy is a nonprofit organization, and we work with the city to improve the park. Our goal is to raise money to put in new amenities or to improve the amenities that are already here, and work with the city to do programming. About 5 or 6 years ago, the Warren Connor Coalition organization came together and they commissioned a blue ribbon panel that came out to study the park. One of the things they came up with was having Chandler Park become this conservation campus. And so they decided that we should look at bioswales and rain gardens and use the park kind of as a demonstration project for that. And so that's why we include GSI in all of the amenities that we put in the park. The marshland can accommodate 2.5 million gallons of water. And what happens is that there is a parking lot across the street from the marshland. The water park has a large parking lot. A lot of rain falls on that parking lot and Ring Road, which surrounds the marshland. That water gets into a conveyance basin, into some pumps underground, and they're pumped into the marshland. And so that water's intake fills up the marshland. Like I said, we can hold about 2.5 million gallons of water, and that water is constantly moving. So at the big end of the bay, there are pumps that pump the water and they flow it back into the water overlay, and so we kind of keep the water moving that way. So all the water that comes into the marshland does not go downstream into the drain. So it's very helpful because instead of this water going straight into the drain for a major rain event, we capture it here. It takes off a little pressure on the system, so people's basements don't get flooded and things like that. So we do a little part to try to help with that. Selected plants, we try to get native plants to put around the marshland. Trees are also add to the process of absorbing water and things like that. So the plants are here for beautification and for education purposes as well. So the marshland took us about a year to build. We spent a little bit over $1 million to do that. And I think it's money well spent, and I think it's going to be a great asset for the community in the long term. They're getting used to it being here. Before, it was just a soggy area that nobody could use. Now people can come out and take a look at it. People got to get used to that it's a marsh, so it's not going to be always pristine and cut like you cut your grass, but sometimes it's going to look a little rugged, but that's how marshes are. So people are getting used to it. I see people walking around and through it all the time. So we're excited about people enjoying it. There's vegetation growing, so there's invasive species, and so we have to manage those. We have to make sure they don't take over the marshland. We have to make sure the water is in good, healthy condition as well. So we're kind of learning as we go. Just making sure that everything is working like it's supposed to. So the football field, we have a regular sized football field. It's synthetic turf, and so water falls on that football field, and usually those types of fields, they're drained into the drainage system. But our football field actually drains into a bioswale, which is off to the side of it, actually 2 bioswales. So the water goes into the bioswales, and that water seeps into the ground in about 48 to 72 hours on a major rain event. So the GSI system worked very well early on in the process. When we were building the football field, right when we got done with it, there was a water main break right at the edge of the football field that flooded for about two weeks or so before the city could get out to repair it. The good thing about that is that the GIS system was already in place, and so the field never got flooded. We were still able to use the property, and the system worked very well for us. Depending on the budget, we try to add to that. So throughout the park, there's a plan where we think how the water flows depending on the topology of the park. And so from time to time, we see puddles and standing water, so we look at those as opportunities to build additional rain gardens. We use the marshland as a place to teach environmental education. Right now, currently, we have environmental education classes virtually for young people, and we're going to be teaching about the birds and the bees and the plants and how all that works together. We'll constantly have information on our website and social media educating people about what's going on in the marshland. So when people come out to the park, they can enjoy the park, but we want them to be able to come to the marshland and learn a little bit about the environment too. So we'll have mechanisms for people to do that. In addition to the plants and the water, the marshland is also designed to bring habitat into the community as well. So it's designed to accommodate turtles, and snakes and butterflies. We've seen some birds that we don't normally see around here. There's a blue heron that hangs around here now. So we're excited about that. This is just the first phase in the marshland. Thanks to the Kresge Foundation, the Erb Foundation, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Those are our three major partners as far as funding. The City of Detroit, Department of Water and Sewage, all were very helpful in the funding of this. And this is just the first phase. The next phase is we want to build an outdoor environmental classroom right across the other side of the marshland so people can come and we can have classes and talk about the marshland in a little bit more detail. For me, this whole project is really exciting. I am an administrator by trade, but I am a kind of an outdoors recreation. I'm more so into athletics and parks, but seeing this park come alive, seeing people enjoy the park is really exciting for me. So I get a big thrill when I see our park with hundreds and thousands of people. With COVID, it's been kind of hard to do that, but people still want to come out. We get a lot of good feedback about what the park used to be and how it is now, and people really enjoy the changes. There's a number of locations through the park where we're going to be building some additional bioswales and rain gardens. We have some amenities in place like our tennis court where we'll be adding some GSI components as well. And so we're looking forward to doing that and really making the whole park a place where people can not just enjoy, but get educated about GSI at the same time.
My name is Steve Wasco. I'm a member of the parish at St. Suzanne, Our Lady Gate of Heaven in Detroit, where I was born and raised and grew up and got baptized here and went to school in the building right next to us. And I currently serve as project director for the St. Suzanne CODY ROUGE Community Resource Center. At our parish, our mission statement talks about using our time, treasures, and talents to serve not only our faith community, but our neighboring community. And in the Community Resource Center that we created a few years back, our mission statement talks about empowering children, families, and youth with hope. And really, because we've looked at this much more comprehensively than simply the environmental component, and that we've involved residents, we've involved students, we've involved youth, adults in educational programs surrounding this, and that this really has been a way to kind of in a very broad way synergize a number of aspects of our relationship with the community. I would love to say that it really was the environment that motivated us first to get into the rain gardens and the depaving and our other projects, but it really wasn't. It was actually an economic issue. We had just kind of rearranged our organization to start managing our community center, and our financial consultants said, well, we envision in addition to all the other bills you'll be paying, you're going to have this new fee of $24,000 a year called a drainage fee payable to the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department. So we really thought, and one thing led to another. A few partners were hovering around the area who were talking about some of this rain garden work. And we thought, if we could make this truly an educational project that involves local community, youth, and adults, we might just be able to find a way to implement some of these projects to solve the rainwater problem in a way that both reduces our drainage fee and covers, in large measure, the cost of installation. So for each of the rain gardens being installed, it was preceded by a semester-long educational program, one that involved middle school students, one that involved high school students, and one that involved local adults. And they learned all about the whole hydration process and what happens to stormwater and why stormwater is bad when there's too much of it, and it flows into the combined sewer overflow with the city and all those sort of things. So they were able to learn that as well as become active participants in the installation of the rain gardens themselves. Our particular church and community center sit right in the heart of the CODY ROUGE neighborhood and right in the neighborhood. On all four sides of us, there are rows of houses in that. And the campus is porous, it's open. We don't have large gates and fences and that. The rain gardens have really been a way to bring the community in, to be able to see through signage and eventually benches and other things, some of the practices that they can do in their homes as well, in terms of diverting the gutters, planting rain gardens, bringing the environment and nature together, having more butterflies and birds in their yard, and all these things. We currently have 3 rain gardens, a rather small one and then 2 larger ones. They process water from a total of 17 downspouts that have been disconnected off of 2 large buildings. The water from those downspouts flows through some trench underground piping that we provided and flows into rain gardens. So it feeds the plants that are there as well as processes the water in a way that over the course of a year we estimate that 372,000 gallons of water that would normally have gone into the city sewer system is instead going into our rain gardens, being processed much more environmentally effectively. The students and adults that participated in our community education programs participated in actually selecting the species of plants that were planted. And they looked at plants that were Michigan native species that were extremely drought tolerant as well as extremely flood tolerant. Because when it rains, the rain gardens literally fill up with water. They puddle, and then we might go 3 or 4 weeks with no rain at all in the state of Michigan. So the plants are specifically designed to be able to handle that range of condition. And these are perennials, these are Michigan native plants. They're used to 12 months a year of being out here in sometimes cold, sometimes very warm weather. As you might expect when you're digging on a property that's had buildings on it for 72 years, you find some surprises. We had to trench under sidewalks, and in one case we found a sidewalk under a sidewalk. In another part of the rain garden we found asphalt from a former parking lot that none of us could remember had been there. Many of us have been here for many, many years in that. So a few surprises along the way, but we dealt with those. You know, as a resident of the city of Detroit, I'm familiar with driving by many places where folks have planted gardens, sometimes done curb cuts along roadways and planted various environmental features. And within a couple years, it really becomes like just a magnet for litter and weeds and that sort of stuff. So we were very conscious about the fact that we wanted something that would continue to beautify the campus and the neighborhood as well as perform its function to process stormwater. So we really have been conscious about really just picking up litter, regular weeding, and that. We don't have a regular maintenance program. It's interesting that some of the partners, like Friends of the ROUGE, are beginning to offer workshops on ongoing maintenance of their gardens that have been installed across the city. It was important, especially for the youth involved. We are all familiar with STEM education, but STEAM education adds an arts component, and that really engages the students' minds around what they're working. So we had a visual arts and a performing arts component. The performing arts was a rap music program where they rapped around the work that they were doing, and the visual arts included muraling some of the work and some of the aspects of the community as well. That involved, in one case, the entire south-facing wall of our large building. That was a summer-long project where local high school students created a mural that has a lot of environmental landscape in it, as well as ties it to the CODY ROUGE community. As with all of these programs, we really only wanted to do them if we were able to find some way to involve the community. So as we talked to Detroit Future City and some of their partners, it was identified as a way not only to depave 7,200 square feet of otherwise really pretty useless asphalt area, but a way to train local adults on that heavy machinery, that Caterpillar equipment that you see alongside of the roadways during construction project, and ultimately have employability skills in those fast-growing arenas of the job market. So to be able to depave 7,200 square feet, to be able to get rainwater credits for that, and to be able to train local residents really brought it all together in the same way that the rain gardens did. We largely were able to apply for and receive grants from the Ralph Wilson Foundation, from United Way, through the Bosch Foundation, and others to be able to fund the programs that installed the rain gardens. Our cost as an institution were relatively minor. I think maybe $2,000 in one case and less than that in another case for some of the equipment and supplies. The benefit has been what's estimated to be around $180 a month credit on our water drainage bill. Comes out to about $2,200 a year. To put that in perspective, that's a reduction of 11% off of what that drainage fee would be. And we're about a third of the way through our planning. We've installed 3 rain gardens. There's 6 more practices recommended. So you could see that the 11% would become perhaps a third reduction on our overall drainage bill when they're fully implemented. We plan to install 2 more rain gardens, similar to the ones that we have, and then we plan a number of projects that are frankly going to be more complicated. We haven't wrapped our heads entirely how to do them or fund them around our parking lots in terms of having some impervious pavement, bricks that the water is able to drain through, other ways for the water to flow off our parking lots the same way that we're processing the water off of our 2 large buildings. When we started this, we didn't know a thing about this, literally didn't know anything about stormwater management. It really was, through the grace of God on one hand, on the other hand, just really being open-minded to partnerships with institutions that we really didn't have relationships with before in the environmental field. And bringing that all together in a way that just made sense. I think that this can be a creative solution to resolve, as it did here, both environmental challenges and as well as economic challenges, and find a way to involve not only your parishioners but community members in bringing it all together in a comprehensive program. The other thing is, in our faith, environmental stewardship has always been a strong part. Pope Francis for the Catholic Church has written encyclicals and pastoral letters about care for the environment and care for all living creatures and that. So it's a little bit in our DNA, or a lot in our DNA as well.
So Oak Grove is an African Methodist Episcopal church, and we've been in the community for 98 years. And our mission is to make a difference in the lives of families, the Detroit metro area, and the nation. And so as far as doing a GSI, I'm gonna be honest, initially it started out that we wanted to reduce the monies that we had to pay out for the stormwater charges. And so it was a trip to the overflow plant and down by River Rouge that really changed all of that. Just seeing what happens when all the stormwater comes in, especially if we can think of the 2014 flood, but essentially what has to happen. And essentially all the water goes there, and they have to make a decision to hold that water and back up residents' basement, because they can't release it back to the environment. And learning that whole thing, it's like once you know better, you do better. And so as a result, we want to be better stewards of our land that we have. And so went to put together some plans, knew nothing about GSI. Google was my friend and continues to be my friend. So went to Google, tried to come up with some concepts, and then went and spoke to some people at Detroit Future City, and they gave us some tremendous recommendations. They said, you really want to break this into two parts, because our church is about 1.8 acres and about 80% is impervious. So you want to look at the church and then the parking lot. And so from that, they said you want to tackle it in two separate pieces. And so then submitted and essentially got a grant. And that's when a lot of the help came. And so we got great ideas from the city as far as how to, which types of GSI infrastructures that we wanted to use and so forth. And that's really how it got started. Capturing the water from the roofs, we had to redirect it instead of letting it just go through the building into the sewer system. Redirect it, as you can see behind me, as it exits outside the building, and then we direct it into a little trench in the ground that goes into the rain gardens. Our rain gardens hold 8,500 gallons of water. And then as far as the total acreage we have 2.5 acres, but 1.8 acres is impervious. So rain gardens are designed to use native plants, and it's a beautiful design. Now I'm gonna try to act like I really know what I'm saying, be honest with you. So the roots on native plants dig really deep, and so they can get water from the soils when it gets dry. And they're perfect for rain gardens. And so they're perfect for when it's wet, and they're perfect for when it's dry. So it's the native plants that really make the difference. During installation, there were two things that really kind of surprised us. And I'm just going to tell you, the first one is really trying to redirect the water from the roofs. And we thought just calling your local plumber, we would be able to find someone. It was really hard to find a plumber to do it. Essentially, we found Roto-Rooter. You would have never thought we should have called them in the beginning. But they're the ones who were able to come and assess the job and actually do it. The second surprise is during the actual digging out of the rain gardens itself, we came across red glacial sand. And I was like, what does that mean? And essentially, red glacial sand has what they call great infiltration rate. It's just like, it just soaks up water. And what the gentleman shared with me is that this used to be Lake Erie long time ago. So we were really blessed with the red glacial sand to have rain gardens that really will never flood. The project costs about a little under $29,000. As far as our outlays was more closer to $15,000 because we received a grant from Detroit Future City. And our return on investment is around 12 years. As far as credit from the city, we're working with the city now as far as to get credit. We're estimating initially 12%, but with the red glacial sand, we're hoping to get about 16%. And you have to keep that in mind. That is, when we get credits, that's for the whole acreage. And most of our impervious land is really with the parking lot. Maintenance of the rain gardens is really a challenge right now with the pandemic, really because we're counting on the church to be volunteers to help take care of the rain gardens and de-weed and so forth. So it's been just very few people that have been able to do it. Hopefully in the future, when we get back into church services, we'll get more volunteers. AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church, is a connectional church. So we share what we learned with our rain gardens at a lot of our meetings. And especially with the Sierra Club, they help us install the flowers. So they're actually having a bike tour that comes by next weekend to actually display the rain gardens. And also we have a sign for people that come by. I wish we were out in a more commercial area for people to see, but the community has responded quite well to it. We're all making these decisions and don't really quite understand it, but we can make a difference and not have overflow problems and not affect our neighbors. And even during 2014, I experienced flooding in my basement. So if we had more of these types of infrastructures, we probably wouldn't have had that incident. GSI, Green Stormwater Infrastructure, makes a difference to urban areas. Urban areas were really developed and not really understanding what impervious property does to a city, and especially a large city like Detroit. My advice is to learn about rain gardens, and Google will tell you so much, but I would say contact Detroit Future City. If it were not for Detroit Future City, I don't know where I would have been. They were able to walk with me lockstep on this whole process. And Sarah Hyash and Susan Ruzanowski, they were wonderful. They're very knowledgeable because we went into this not really knowing much. And just find those experts. And it's easy to find experts at Detroit Future City. So that's my recommendation.